On Business Nigeria, we uncover the secrets of the financial world,
breaking down intricate economic and financial matters.
We analyze the stock market, shares, bonds, and the thrilling world of cryptocurrencies.
We unveil and analyze complex policies of the CBN and other government parastatals as they affect your everyday life, keeping you a step ahead every time.
Okay, this is good. Facts matter. Our team dives deep to separate fact from popular opinion.
We simplify complex government policies as it impacts your everyday life. Hello and thank you for joining the Monday edition of Journalist Hangout. I am Esther Mokwariola. Today on the program, NDDC MD Dr. Sam Ogbuku ramps up infrastructure development of the Commission in a bold move to deliver on its mandate. And later on the show, Nigerian Governors Forum report says new minimum wage may push states into bankruptcy. I'll be hanging out with Babajide Kolade Otitoju and Mojid Jamil. Journalist Hangout starts now. Now, the Niger Delta Development Commission is set to ramp up its infrastructure development in a bold move to deliver on its mandate. Recently, it announced that it would commission 92 infrastructure projects valued at over 84 billion naira across 5 states in the region over the next few weeks. And this is according to a statement by the Director, Corporate Affairs, NDDC, Mr. Pius Ugakwokiteni. Well, let's take a look at latest developments in the NDDC under its Managing Director, Sam Ogbuku, and we will be back shortly.
The NDDC, as a developmental agency, we stand as a buffer between the oil producing region of Niger Delta and the federal government. It is often faced with how to judiciously allocate the patrimony of the oil works. To overcome the challenges, we need someone in the person of Sam Dr. Ogbuku at the realm of affairs who knows how to tip the scale and achieve the balance. First, within the NDDC and between the commission and the staffs, management and the board. And secondly, a balance among the exodus of forces, such as the commission and the youth, communities, states and states.
Delta Development Commission, led by its Managing Director, management staff of the Commission, appeared before the Senate's Committee on Niger Delta Affairs to present budget estimates of its 1.911 trillion 2024 budget proposal. The Commission says the budget was prepared to prioritize improvement in security, job creation, youth and women empowerment, social welfare, education, infrastructure in the Niger Delta region.
We must register and have a data of our poor and vulnerable. The whole idea is that once we have this data, it will be easier for us to make sure that they tap from various social health insurance schemes. But without the data, you don't know who you think should benefit.
The NDDC says, aside other sources of revenue generation, it intends to borrow about 1 trillion naira to service critical infrastructural development in the region. The committee says it intends to also tighten all loose ends through effective oversight to ensure the funds are properly utilized.
Riverine communities in Crossover State are faced with the challenge of commuting from one place to another. To address these, the Managing Director of the Niger Delta Development Commission, Samuel Ogbuku, is here in Calabar to unveil an improved ferry service at the Marina Resort. The inauguration of Abito ferry service, according to the NDDC boss, emerged as a beacon of hope within the regional water transportation corridor. He highlights the prolonged sufferings endured by citizens due to the dilapidated state of the Calabar-Itu Road and emphasized the commitment of the NDDC to support investment and projects aimed at enhancing the welfare of a region's populace.
There are a lot of areas in the region that are cut off from road network. So it is not only those who are from Cross River and Akwa Ibom that will benefit from this service. On your part, you've done your best by investing heavily in this ferry service. It is now our own turn to discuss with you to see how we can partner.
The Chairman Senate Committee on NDDC, Asuko Ekpenyong, and the Managing Director of Abito Ferry Transport in Cross River State, Richard Akinaka, stated the dual benefits of the service and how it will significantly reduce travel time and promote tourism within the state.
As you develop these waterways and the infrastructure for these waterways, you'll be providing jobs, you'll be developing the areas where you'll be building jetties. You'll be increasing commerce by the banks of the riverside. This is the true commerce.
On behalf of Abito Global Services, welcome you here in good spirit to witness the birth of an idea, not just to provide an alternative means of transportation, but to establish the natural connection between the two sister states of Cross River and Akwa Ibom State.
The NDDC hopes that with this inauguration, the significance of water transportation will stimulate economic growth and foster job creation in the region.
Let's get more perspectives on this issue. Babajide, let's get your assessment first off on the developmental projects in the Niger Delta. What's your assessment?
I think when you mentioned the Niger Delta Development Commission, which evolved from the creation of the Niger Delta Ministry, what comes to people's minds is corruption, stealing, lack of transparency, and all that. Remember, the coming of the NDDC itself was very problematic. It took the overriding of President Obasanjo's veto for the NDDC to be born. And that's the first and only time that a Nigerian president will be vetoed by the National Assembly. There have been temptations in the past to override a president's veto, but it usually will not happen. But Niger Delta Development Commission, the birth of it had to come in the aftermath of the overriding of President Obasanjo's veto. That is a long story. We won't go deep into that. But over the years, when you talk about the NDDC, what comes to people's minds is mind-boggling corruption. Even in its very recent history, it's corruption that springs to mind. But with Dr. Sam Ogbuku in the saddle, there's every reason to believe that this is a new broom. This is a new person who just wants to do things differently. The ugly narrative about the Niger Delta, especially the issue of corruption, lack of transparency, the fact that politicians see it as their playground, where they can make money, greedy politicians, where they can make money. It is that ugly narrative that Dr. Sam Ogbuku is determined to do something about. Because I attended the Niger Delta event in Nigeria South recently. And at that event, Dr. Ogbuku said that the leadership of the NDDC, and the good thing is, we now have an NDDC that is board is working hand in hand with the management. In the past, we've always had problems between the management and the board. this is another positive thing that is happening. The board and the management are working together. So Dr. Buku said, we are transiting from transaction to transformation. And I found that really interesting. Transiting from transaction to transformation. And he did not just say that. He did not just try to make us believe that this time around they want to do things the right way. Dr. Buku brought in KPMG to design a governance structure for the NDDC going forward. That is a sure sign that he wants the NDDC under his leadership to be a complete departure from the past in terms of the way the place is run. It has to be run in a transparent manner. And his policies and his programs must be programs that align with the desires and the needs of the people. You can't just be coming up with projects that have no meaning to the people. You must interface with the people, know exactly what they want, and then proceed to deliver the projects that meet their expectations. So you will see that incrementally is moving in that direction. That is the sign of a man who is focused. He knows what he wants. He doesn't want to be like others before him. He wants to do things differently and in a manner that oozes transparency. Because to bring KPMG, you know what they are about. So that is significant. It sends the right message, even to those pestersome politicians that, look, let us do our work. We want to do our work in a manner that sends the right signals to people that this is not the NDDC of old, but an NDDC management and board that is committed to doing things differently and delivering on its mandates in a remarkable manner. You can only do that if you make up your mind to institute change from within. If we want to change TVC, for example, that change has to start from the leadership. It's a top to bottom thing. But if the leadership doesn't set the right example, change will not happen. Others will prefer to still continue to do things in the way they be used to doing things. Dr. Sam Ogbuku, I've only seen him once. I can say that I'm impressed with the way he's going about the work, because if we deal with the issue of lack of transparency, because it's very significant, why should everybody think about corruption when you are talking about NDDC? Why? It's because over the years, that is what we knew them for. Well, he's determined to give himself immortality. Positive immortality is of two types. Positive immortality and negative immortality. Some people, even if they were failures, they can still give themselves immortality. But when you give yourself positive immortality, it has to do with the work that you do for the people, not for yourself or for members of your family. And that is why, for some of us, we see a change happening. And that change is already delivering projects that in the past you will not even think that NDDC will be committed to. You can see NDDC even doing live coverage of its big projects being inaugurated in Akwa Ibom, in the electricity project in Okitipupa. You know, projects scattered around the states that make up the Niger Delta. I know Wajid would talk specifically about some of the projects that he has interacted with, but this is just what I see. A man determined to do things differently.
A departure from the norm.
A departure from the norm and a desire to do things in a much more transparent manner so that people can see the NDDC in a positive light.
Right. I agree with you on that perspective. But, you know, Then again, you will talk about corruption, which has been endemic in the NDDC for some time, and it might seem like a Herculean task on the part of this new MD to perhaps, let's say, turn the NDDC into a new leaf. But Majid, from your own perspective, would you say that it might be a Herculean task on the part of Dr. Sam Ogbuku to achieve this feat? Because you have a lot of, will I say, baggage on the part of those, or the part of the region itself, because there are a lot of issues that are focused in the Niger Delta. We have environmental degradation, we have oil pollution, we have gas flaring, so much that needs to be done in terms of development in the Niger Delta.
When you have somebody who is focused, knows what he wants, and he goes for it. And the first thing he did was, like Jide said, when you go to Equity, you come with clean hands. Right. He invited the audit firm to come in and look at his books and clean it up. So projects were being done on need-based project implementation policy. Like of the 9 states under the NDDC, you see a community who needs a school, you took solar distance there in the past. You just dump solar panels on them. And what they actually need is a school. Or in a place like Okutuba, for example, where a lot of electricity, about 2,000 communities are being connected to the national grid with the help of the NDDC. Hitherto, they will just go and probably build primary health center that will not be functional, that we won't have. People. That is it. But now they meet with the people tell them this is what we want, and they go there and implement. And the same thing is happening in Abia, Akwa Ibom, Ondo, Imo, and Delta Bayelsa, and other states under the Niger Delta. And specifically, I think this Sam Ogbuku-led management is lucky, and also because he is also determined and focused. It used to be a tripartite battlefield between the minister, the board, and the management. But now they are all one in unison. That is why they are able to make progress. We've had instances where the NDCC under a former management were the National Assembly, and the acting MD collapsed. We all saw it here when they could not defend certain projects. But in this instance, we have a situation where the NDDC has been structured to handle projects under infrastructure, power, agriculture, education, youth development, where specific projects are undertaken and delivered. About 227 primary health care centers have been delivered in the 9 states under the NDDC. In fact, for once, I'm not happy that Ekiti is not an oil-producing state where we could have benefited. And of course, I know Jide would have wished that Kogi is in the NDDC.
But it's not in the Niger Delta region, so let's argue that.
So we have a situation where they have deployed and commissioned 527 transformers to enhance electricity distribution.
That's a lot of money.
A lot of money. To commission one transformer, be it 100 kVA or 300 kVA or 500 kVA, the minimum you need is 50 million naira, because you need to procure and install and pay the regulatory fees to NERC and to the different discos. So it's quite huge, 527. Then provision of solar street lights, street lights. They call it all-in-one solar street lights. You see, standalone, and it gives you electricity for the streets and some communities for 12 hours between 7 p.m. and 7 a.m. 56,000 units. 56,000, and each unit, I can tell you why they call it standalone. You have the plinth or the base, then the pole, then the fittings, which is the lamp on top. Those three combined together, that's what they call all-in-one. And each unit, depending on the wattage, costs between 500,000 to 1 million. You can imagine 56,000 deployed in 9 states. So then more than 2,000 postgraduate scholarship schemes, have been given postgraduate for students and the beneficiaries in these 9 oil-producing states. In the same vein, so many schools, as even I think Futo already, 500-bed capacity modern hostel for Futo already, and some other schools, the tertiary institutions.
I think they plan to go around 18 such schools.
Yeah. So it's a massive achievement under the Sam Ogbuku-led dispensation. And I think I say kudos to the management and the board. But for once, we have sanity in that place, because what we used to hear is chaos, people fighting, then abandon projects and stuff like that. So, but...
It's actually even completing abandoned.
Yeah, completing abandoned project. Yeah,
so many problems.
So, and that's why the National Assembly is eager to, approve their budget of 1.119 trillion for 2024. They were able to successfully defend it because they showed evidence of what we have been able to do with the ones they have given. Roads, they were given in the past. Roads, bridges. Then they are into they partnered the International Fund for Agri Development, IFAD, to reclaim some land for agricultural purposes, where they had clusters of farmlands and where they are assisting some youth to go back to the farm to increase food production. The NDDC, in collaboration with the federal government and the World Bank, I think it's a $60 million project, out of which about 20 million has been assessed. So it's a lot of good news coming from the NDDC this time. And I think I give kudos to the president, who has given that free hand for them to operate. In the past, we had what happened in the last dispensation, where, it's one fight or the other. But I think now it's also a function of who the leader is. They know that we have a no-nonsense president. If you put somebody in a position, you should allow him to function, and he's giving them the necessary support.
Some of us were even thinking that he will come in as president and change Sam Ogbuku. But he left him. He must have had some stories about him. He must have received some feedback that convinced him that, look, it's best to leave this young man to continue the good job that he's doing. Because, look, bridges are very costly to build. And the 25.7 kilometer of Gbeanembe road project is very expensively put together. But he has seen the need to connect communities through those bridges and good roads. Because if you connect those communities, it will boost economic development. They will be able to connect one another. If it is rice that you are good at producing, people who do not produce as much can reach your community, buy the rice, and so on and so forth. So he is built a lot of roads within so short a time. And Niger Delta, you have only about 4 months in the year to work. If you want to develop infrastructure, you have to move at the speed of light, because you have just 4 months. It rains consistently in that part of the country. So for someone to have done all of this within so short a time, it shows the doggedness, it shows the determination and the diligence that is involved.
We've said a lot about, no doubt, about his developmental projects and everything in the region, but there's still this knotty issue in that side, that really gets some people worried that perhaps the government needs to perhaps address. But what are those expectations beyond infrastructural developments that you would love to see the MD take on in terms of putting the region on track?
Job creation. It has to. I'm happy with the IFAD, the partnership. It's a 21 billion naira partnership with IFAD. Definitely, it will help reduce unemployment in the Niger Delta because there is a lot of restiveness. There's a lot of unemployment. People have been deprived over the years. The NDDC, as an interventionist agency, was meant to address some of those problems, confronting the rural poor in the Niger Delta states. Now, he has to focus on job creation. NDDC cannot by itself do it alone. It has to partner with others, partner with the private sector, so that we can see a lot of jobs being created. And I also want him to ramp up infrastructure development. Yes, you can look at some of what he has done, these 42 bridges, 87 jetties, to facilitate water transportation. The point that I'm making is it should continue to develop infrastructure because infrastructure has a way of also helping us to get out of economic depreciation. You remember the U.S. president saying at that time that we will spend ourselves out of recession. It turned America to a kind of big construction site. A lot of jobs were created. Some of them, by nature, not permanent. But there will be permanent jobs created, along the way. The woman who comes to sell food to people at the construction site, she is part of the value chain in her own way. She also gets to benefit.
Yeah.
The person who supplies reinforcement for them to build bridges is also involved. He gets to benefit. So there's a ripple effect. So I can only encourage Dr. Samuel Buku to continue along that line. When we were watching the Ibeno Bridge in Akwa Ibom, it was the Senate president that represented the president. I looked at the project. I said, these are projects that in the past states were involved in. It was a massive project.
Right.
But the impact on the communities, neighboring communities, is huge. Nobody needs to tell us. So he just needs to remain focused, continue to pursue the rule-based process that he has instituted by bringing in KPMG and deliver to us an NDDC that truly works for the people, not an NDDC that is the playground of greedy politicians. That's not what we want to see. And I'm really happy, and I think the board chairman and every member of the board, they should feel proud.
Chief Chedu Ebie.
Yes, they should feel proud where they are because they are all part of history.
So, I think I'm also excited by this. There's this HOPE initiative. The acronym is HOPE, Holistic Opportunity Projects and Engagements, specifically designed for the youths. They created a database where unemployed youths were captured. And if you see that video, you see some people fishing on the river. It's part of that scheme that engages youths in fishing activities under what they call aquaculture.
Right.
So it's part of the project funded by the IFAD. Youths were basically the major beneficiaries. I mean, they call it HOPE, and in conjunction with the rehabilitation of some land for agricultural purposes. So it's quite commendable.
Yeah.
A lot of youths have been taken out of the job market.
Yeah, let's quickly.
What we are saying is truly transformative and is encouraging.
Absolutely, can't agree more. We're hoping that the NDDC works for the people. Well, let's quickly go on a break and return in just a moment with more discussions. Stay with us.
Coleman wires and cable. Great quality. Now with the new look.
Right, before we get to our next issue of discussion, BKO, let me quickly get your final thoughts on this matter. You know, I mentioned earlier on, we have the issue of Ayetoro Sea incursion. We have oil spill in Bayelsa. Talk to us on what do you think the NDDC should do with regards to those concerns?
The NDDC has been doing a lot of desilting of our waters in the Niger Delta. If we are to simply look at everything that Dr. Sam Obuku has done, we will need more than 3 programs to dissect all of what he has done. Because look, even some of the projects that were inaugurated that we carried live, which was the first time that an NDDC leadership will allow TV stations to come and see what he's doing. We've had no time to look at all of those projects because they didn't do it for one day, So one thing I know is that nations don't develop by accident.
Right.
And good leaders don't achieve success by accident. You have to work for it. You must have a plan. The good news for us is that somebody has a plan. You can't solve all the problems, but at least people will see your single-mindedness, your determination, your focus, and your honesty. And it means a lot to our people. When a new leadership comes, that new leadership, people will benchmark your own successes against his
achievements. Yeah.
Yes, your own achievements against his. So we see, yes, Ayetoro in Ondo State, a community almost now being submerged, by ocean surge. There is a need for NDDC to see what it can do in that area. And of course, try its best to also help communities that are suffering from oil spillage in the Niger Delta area, Bayelsa, Rivers, and the rest of them. But again, the NDDC cannot do all of this. And during one of his engagements in Ekorepene, he talked about the need to take the NDDC out of TSA. The TSA is a good initiative, but its lack of flexibility also slows down agencies of government and even ministries. So you can see the president excused Ison Wike from TSA.
The FCT.
We all can see the result. I'm confident that if we stop thinking that, given the ugly past, that the NDDC will mismanage this opportunity if allowed to be taken out of TSA. If we stop thinking along that line and allow that transition to happen, move out of the TSA, the flexibility that you accord them will allow for projects to be delivered in record time. It's as simple as that. So that's also something that I hope to see, and I hope the president considers this. The president has all the opportunities in the world to check what Sam Obuku and his team have done, to verify whether we came here and simply we are just blabbing. He can verify the positive things happening in the Niger Delta. Yes, there's still a lot of work to do.
Absolutely.
But the truth is, something is being done. And if the president feels impressed enough, he can then say, okay, for us to have greater flexibility and for us to be able to ramp up these good projects happening in the Niger Delta, let's take the NDDC out of the Treasury single account, and let's see where that leads us.
Okay, let's quickly move on to our next issue, where we will be discussing as the nation awaits the new minimum wage promised to be sent to the National Assembly by President Bola Tinubu. The burden of implementing the minimum wage may make many states bankrupt. In a document titled Analysis of State Back Inflows and State Expenditure Profile of Nigeria Governors Forum Secretariat, the NGF report warned that implementing the new minimum wage could push states into bankruptcy due to increased recurrent expenditure. And according to the report, the burden of recurrent expenditure already left Abia, Ekiti, Gombe, Imo, Katsina, Kogi, Oyo, Plateau, Sokoto, Yobe, and Zamfara in deficit in 2022. And the report predicted that if the recurrent expenditure increased by 50%, 13 states would fall into deficit, with only 10 remaining financially stable. And the Tripartite Committee's recommendation of 62,000 naira minimum wage could necessitate over 100% increase from the current 30,000 naira, potentially leaving only a few states like Anambra, Bayelsa, Borno, Ebonyi, Gombe, Imo, Jigawa, Kaduna, Lagos, and Rivers with a positive net revenues based on the 2022 fiscal data. Moji, let's get your perspective on this and the way forward, because with this report, what do you make out of this first off?
In as much as I want workers to earn as much as $500,000 million per month as minimum wage, but the reality on ground shows that even at 30,000, 15 states, as at February this year, are yet to implement 30,000 minimum wage. And the governors met with the president on Thursday, and they put the cards on the table. They said, if there is an 100% increment in the minimum wage from 30 to 62,000, as is being proposed, which Labour is not even agreeing to, it means that 13 more states will not be able, in fact, will be running deficits every month. In terms of recurrent. Recurrent is where salaries are paid. So, and it means we only have about 10 states, including the likes of Lagos, Rivers, Bayelsa, and a few others, Kaduna, who can actually pay
the new
minimum wage, as it were. And the flip side of it, which I want Labour to realize, is that you can't eat your cake and still have it. Now, the governors might have no other option than to cut or further cut workforce. You should look in Anambra, for example, has 20,500 capacity workforce and a wage bill of 1.8 billion per month, pension 894 million, debt servicing 594 million. That is even one of the smallest. Bayelsa has a workforce of 48,000 and wage bill 5.8 billion, pension 1.9 billion, and a debt service obligation of 3.5 billion. So every month, Bayelsa, for example, pays 10 billion naira. That is at 30,000 minimum wage. Because we're only talking of this minimum wage, there is what we call consequential adjustment. As we are adjusting the minimum wage, pensioners, we are adding to salaries of everybody. Pensioners too are also involved. Theirs will also move up. So it means that the whole allocation of a state, both FAC and even internally generated revenue, might end up being consumed by. So what the governors decided is, which Labour has also kicked again, is that let each state, because I mean, if Lagos can afford to pay 60 or 70,000, or even Edo has even said they can pay 70,000. It is, I mean, you don't expect Zamfara or Ekiti to pay the same wage as Lagos or Rivers.
But that's what the law says.
That is what the law says. But
see, when the governors bring up this argument, it is meaningless.
And of God,
the constitution
but can they pay?
Has to change.
But can they pay?
For you to introduce that suggestion that, oh, let governors, let states pay what they can pay. No, that's not what the law envisages. The law envisages that there will be a wage floor.
Yes.
And the law envisages that, based on the minimum wage law, no employer of labor shall pay lower than what is agreed.
Yeah.
We are in a situation today that some governors have adopted a laissez-faire attitude to the minimum wage thing, as if it's not a law. The law permits the Minister of Labor and Productivity to implement the law. But you and I know that, as stubborn as Chris Ngige was, he could not intimidate anybody to pay minimum wage. So, is it Nkiru that will now forcefully implement the minimum wage? It is not, that law, to me now, has to be amended.
Let's
not kid ourselves. Why should we have a situation in which something is signed into law? They prepare the document, they take it before the president signs it into law. It becomes law. But people refuse to, some people make up their minds to not obey the law. And for some of them, it's not their fault. It's because they don't have the resources. At the time, it's just like I gave the example of the Petroleum Equalization Fund. There are many things wrong about the Nigerian, the federal structure that we run. The Petroleum Equalization Fund was designed to ensure that we have the same, petrol is sold at the same price across all parts of our country. But you and I know that it's not easy to implement that. And they are all coming to Lagos to lift petroleum products. You lift PMS from here, you are going all the way to
Sokoto, and you want to sell at 580.
And you want to sell at the same.
That's not possible.
So government was paying the differentials, paying the excess costs to truckers. They are complaining that they are owing them
billions,
because a lot of money. We are owing those truckers.
Yeah.
It's just out of patriotism that they chose not to go on strike. We've been owing them because it's a lot of money. But with the deregulation of that sector, you don't expect people to buy petrol at the same price across the length and breadth of our country. It's not happening anymore. Even Ogun State here, the NNPCL designed a template that ensures that across our country we don't buy petrol at the same price. The price of petrol in Lagos is different to the price in Abuja.
Or even in Ogun. It's even different from.
What is the way forward in this situation?
Because they will have put all of. So now, for me, you see, I don't know how this whole labor thing will end. Issuing ultimatum that they must decide. These are not things that you decide quickly. I said it at that time. It's meaningless to say, oh, you are giving ultimatum if they do not. Even after the government told Labour that, look, it will take effect from May. You understand? So that if it gets resolved in September, government had already committed itself to a kind of retroactive implementation of the minimum wage. But they still went on strike and laid their hands on the national grid in spite of, of that. It's the height of irresponsibility
shut down the airports.
Shut down the national grid. It should never happen again. And I've said, if people like Nouri, Badu and others allow it to happen, it will mean that they are incompetent. I can say it 1,000,000 times. You allow that to happen, this is a matter for another day. And I hope they don't
allow it to happen
do it again. That they too don't even go there again. Now, you know how many people died because they could not access public electricity in some hospitals? People died. I have a friend who lost 2 persons. So that is not even the issue. What for me, if we start having this conversation, you remember that Labour said no, these governors, nobody will permit them to dictate the minimum wage. It's a tripartite committee. You have to agree at some point. 250,000 naira per month as minimum wage, as desirable as it is,
not sustainable.
It's utopian. It's an utopia. Because I don't see how you want to do it.
Fantasy land. It can only happen in
I don't see how you want to do it. Even this 62, I've mentioned repeatedly so that people can fact check me. Abia State, Labour leaders were begging the governor to implement 30,000 minimum wage. They've not implemented it. Except if they implemented it yesterday and I wasn't aware. It's not even possible for me to be aware of everything. So it's possible that he has implemented it overnight. I'm not aware. But for them to have come out to say, Governor, implement 30,000 minimum wage, that is a shameful reminder of the fact that many states are yet to even implement the old one, and we are talking about a new one that is double that amount. So, for me, I think we have reached that point when that law, I have to take a second look at that law, amend it. In America, nobody is, some states, their minimum wage is above the national average. Yeah. It's not a problem.
Right.
Massachusetts, for example, will pay higher than most states.
Right.
And it doesn't mean that it's the richest American state. That's just what they think they can afford. That's the law in their state. So the way it is now, I don't think that law in the form in which it was designed,
right,
I don't think we can continue. This will probably be the last minimum wage that's under that law. Because for me, it becomes a farce. It becomes a joke. If we have a situation in which maybe only about 10 states can pay the minimum wage, others are not paying, and you can't do anything to them, or you do not do anything to them. So why is it a national minimum wage? That means it's not a national minimum wage. It's just a minimum wage for those who can afford to pay. So it's not national in nature. If it's national, it should be binding on all of us.
Well, perhaps there will be a realistic look on that aspect. Let's quickly move on to our next issue of discussion, where Nigerians in diaspora have begun to enjoy ease in passport-related needs. Now, their pains in getting Nigerian passports seems to now be a thing of the past, as a multifaceted approach is underway to ensure seamless and efficient passport processing system. Now, the federal government said it will roll out enhanced e-passport facilities at selected Nigerian embassies across the globe as a test run of introducing the system all over the world to position Nigeria as a leader in technological innovation within the African continent. Minister of Interior, Honorable Olubunmi Tunji-Ojo, said the enhanced e-passport compliant with all international civil aviation organization standards ensures international recognition and security. Majid, your perspective on this, although it seems like it's too good to be true, but I know that I applied for a passport locally. That was about last month, and I'm told that I won't get it until August. But it's like the international
No.
It's fair enough for those who are seeking for it outside first.
I think I have a different experience. Well, okay, mine was renewal, and I applied in May, and I picked Ikeja, Alausa. I didn't talk to anybody. I picked 64 pages and 10 years. I think I applied on the May 24th, and I got a June 3rd day. And that June 3rd, that was when they started the national strike by NLC. So I got there, and I just took a risk. And I got there, discovered they were working. I said, you guys are not on strike. They said, no. I didn't introduce myself. I didn't tell them I'm a journalist. I went like an undercover agent. Honestly, in less than 30 minutes.
You got the process done?
Yeah, no, but although, I said I started the process on May. You go online. You need your NIN, your old passport, your local government attestation, and also declaration of age. Or if you have those 4 documents, you are good to go. So you look for. They will give you options of the closest
passport processing
offices where you can have the earliest convenient dates. So I picked the earliest was so. To cut the long story short, I saw one man moving around checking. Later I discovered that is the head of the Ikeja passport office. I think Mr. Shegun Ogedengbe. Yeah, that's the name. Because in less than 30 minutes I was done. So I was like, what is going on? So I asked for his office and I went to see him. And I said, I know you are from the line. He said, what do you want? You want us to fast? I said, no.
Just want to follow the normal process.
Yes, I followed the normal. I've even completed my process before I went to see him.
Well, have you collected the passport?
Of course. I took it the following day.
Wow.
So
it's the same story that CKN told here.
Yes. So, and my cousin in UK, this is a first-hand information. He enlisted for his own in UK. He said before then, 5 years ago when he did it, he was going to a Nigerian office at Northumberland several times. And you go and queue early in the morning. He said he didn't spend up to 1 hour to capture, and the following day his passport was ready. So, guys, since Tunji Ojo came, I think the revolution started from the former CG, Wura, who retired before Kemi Nandap came, and they have sustained that process. And there's a fantastic young man in Abuja there. I think his name is Ayeni. They say he's the one in charge of finance, Afolayan Ayeni, who is ensuring that these processes are being monitored. Like I told you.
No, because the minister puts them on their toes.
Yeah. So
puts them on their toes, and we are seeing results. So this is the sort of development.
It's a very good one. I think kudos to them.
Yeah, and some are saying that perhaps he needs to give such inspiration to other ministers to also borrow relief so they can perform better.
See, the problems are not the same. The circumstances are different. It's like comparing Zamfara to Rivers. The resources they have are not the same. So to now be judging those governors and, with the same parameters is not right, because the resources that Rivers has, some of these poor states like Ekiti and the rest, they don't have. Yet you want to judge them? No, it's not. I don't think it's right. So, population density are not the same. The resources that Kano has, Jigawa does not have.
Yeah.
Kano is a much richer state than Zamfara.
So what's your analysis of this situation?
I'm happy because in the past, I wanted to change some things about my children's passport, like some names and all that. In the past, you had to go to Abuja to do that. I didn't leave Lagos, and I got it. Because it was part of what Ojo committed to change.
Yeah.
Why should people
go to Abuja
and you want to renew?
Effect collections.
You say people should come and snap and all that. The biometrics don't change. So we have to simplify the process. And the process is simplified now and is much more efficient. So I have every reason to be happy. Even the people who are never happy about good things, on this matter, many of them are happy. They will be thinking of other things that will stir their unhappiness. But on this matter, they are happy.
So we should just give him a pass mark of 100%.
No, the pass mark is not necessarily 100%. There's still a lot of work for him to do.
Yeah.
Especially with prison reform and all that. There's a lot that he needs to do. So, but on the matter of passport, everyone can see that Ojo has
really tried. Okay, before we move on, let's quickly take this final story where Doja TVC News correspondent Doja Salam Adeniyi bagged a Rotary International Media Excellence Award for her indelible contributions to the development of media and strategic communication to educating the people of Lagos and Nigeria at large. We'd like to say congratulations to our very own Doja Salam Adeniyi. BKO, I'd like to congratulate our own.
Yes, Doja is very hardworking. In fact, if you are not hardworking, you cannot produce her.
Absolutely.
Because she's upwardly mobile, she's very aggressive, and she has a talent for delivering excellent special reports. I think from my first day here, I've seen that quality in her, and she's someone that I'm very happy with because you can always trust
her to deliver
her work. One day I was previewing her special report. It's the first time in my years here that I will be previewing someone's report and tears will come down.
Oh, wow.
Because it was so almost
perfectly done
to perfection. She did a special report on left-handers. I wanted to cut it, just to even cut 1 minute out of it. I couldn't.
Well, let's
so she's that good, and at TVC, we are proud of her, proud of the work she did during COVID. At all times, she steps forward.
That comes to mind.
Absolutely. You know, we can congratulate her because she's done excellently well, and we're definitely proud.
Congrats to
well, that's where we have to leave today's edition of Journalist Hangout. Thank you so much, my guests. In the studio, Babajide Kolade Otitoju, and of course, Majid Jamu. Well, that's where we have to wrap this latest edition. You can watch a repeat broadcast of the show tonight at 11. You can also watch it on Sunday from 1:30 to 3:30 p.m. We are also on YouTube at youtube.com/TVC News Nigeria. I am Esther Makwarela. Bye for now, and God bless Nigeria.